Lieutenant Ta One Park woke to the blaring alarms and flashing red lights. The diplomatic vessel shuddered as another blast hit the hull. He grabbed his emergency kit and sprinted toward the escape pods, his security training taking over. All personnel evacuate. This is not a drill. The captain's voice echoed through the corridors. Taiwan helped 2 diplomats into pods before climbing into the last one himself. As the launch sequence initiated, he caught a glimpse of the attacking ship through the viewport, sleek, black, and unlike any design in the known galaxies. The pod ejected with a violent jolt. Taiwan watched the diplomatic vessel erupt into flames behind him. The guidance system beeped, plotting a course to the nearest Earth Alliance outpost. Then everything went wrong. The navigation panel sparked and smoke filled the tiny cabin. The pod tumbled out of control, pulled by the gravity of an uncharted planet below. Taiwan frantically worked the manual controls, but the damage was too severe. Computer, status report. Navigation offline. Communications offline. Life support at 60%. Preparing for emergency landing. Taiwan strapped himself in tightly as the pod broke through the atmosphere. The temperature rose rapidly as friction heated the exterior. Through the viewport, he saw a landscape of vibrant colors: purple forests, teal waters, and pink skies. The impact came hard. Taiwan's head slammed against the restraints, and darkness claimed him. When he awoke, sunlight streamed through a crack in the pod's hull. His head throbbed, but a quick self-assessment confirmed no serious injuries. The pod systems were dead. Only his personal emergency kit remained useful. Taiwan forced the hatch open and stepped onto alien soil. The air was surprisingly sweet, like cinnamon and citrus. 2 suns hung in the lavender sky, one gold and one pale blue. The landscape around him was a lush paradise. Crystal clear pools connected by flowing streams, trees with leaves that shimmered like opals, and flowers that seemed to glow from within. Paradise or not, I need to find water and shelter, he muttered to himself, activating his handheld scanner. It detected no immediate threats, but picked up unusual energy readings several kilometers east. Taiwan gathered his survival pack and set out. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel buoyant. After an hour of hiking through the beautiful alien forest, he heard the sound of falling water and voices. Musical, ethereal voices that definitely weren't human. He crept forward carefully until he could peer through the foliage. What he saw made him freeze in amazement. 3 tall, elegant beings stood beside a waterfall that emptied into a pool of glittering turquoise water. Their skin had a pearlescent sheen that caught the light, changing colors like opals. They had elongated limbs, graceful movements, and hair that floated around their heads as if underwater, despite being dry. Taiwan's translator picked up fragments of their conversation, struggling to process the musical language. They were female, from what he could tell, or at least their society would consider them such. Suddenly, one of them turned, looking directly at his hiding spot. Her eyes were large, with irises that swirled with colors like galaxies in miniature. "I sense a presence," she said, her voice now clear through his translator. "Something unfamiliar." Taiwan knew hiding was pointless. He stood slowly, hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. The 3 beings gasped in unison. The tallest one stepped forward, a device appearing in her hand. "I am Lieutenant Commander Taiwan Park of the Earth Alliance," he said clearly. "My vessel was attacked, and I crashed on your planet. I mean no harm." The 3 beings conferred quickly in their native tongue, too fast for his translator to process. Finally, the one who had sensed him approached. "I am Mary of House Celestial," she said. "These are Jai Yun and Hannah. We are Celesti. Your kind has never visited our regions of space." "I was forced off course," Taiwan explained. "Is there a settlement nearby where I might contact my people?" The 3 exchanged looks again. Jai Yun, who carried what looked like scientific instruments, stepped forward. "You are on Elysium, A pleasure resort planet, she explained. But you have arrived at an unfortunate time. The resort closes tomorrow for its 3-year renewal cycle. All communications and transport systems will be deactivated. Taiwan felt his hopes sink. 3 years? Is there any way to send a message before then? Hana, who stood slightly apart with what appeared to be a weapon, shook her head. The final transport departed this morning. We 3 were completing final biological surveys before departing ourselves. Then I'm stranded, Taiwan said, struggling to keep his voice steady. Neri studied him with those galaxy eyes. What is this Earth Alliance? We know of many civilizations, but not yours. Humans are relatively new to interstellar travel, Taiwan explained. We've only reached this arm of the galaxy in the last 50 years. A young species, Jiayun said, her scientific curiosity evident. Yet you achieved space travel without assistance. We did, Taiwan confirmed. The 3 Celesti looked at each other, communicating silently. Finally, Neri spoke. You may come with us to our shelter. Tomorrow, we will decide what to do. 3 years is a long time to be stranded, even in paradise. As Taiwan followed the 3 alien women through the beautiful landscape, he realized his diplomatic training was about to be tested in ways the Academy never imagined. 3 years on an alien pleasure planet with 3 alien women, and he was the first human they had ever met. The adventure had just begun. Taiwan sat cross-legged on the floor of the Celesti dwelling, surrounded by curious alien technology. The shelter was a seamless structure that seemed to grow from the ground itself, with walls that changed color depending on the time of day. Currently, they glowed a soft amber as the primary sun set outside. Neri entered the main chamber, carrying a transparent globe filled with what looked like tiny stars. This will provide light through the night cycle, she explained, placing it in the center of the room. Thank you, Taiwan said. Your home is remarkable. Did you build it? Neri's galaxy eyes widened. Build? No, we grew it from seed pods. Do humans not use biological architecture? We build with metals, concrete, and glass, Taiwan explained. Only recently have we begun experimenting with biological materials. Jiayun, who had been analyzing his survival equipment with unmasked fascination, looked up. You shape dead materials. How primitive. Her tone wasn't insulting, merely stating what she saw as fact. Taiwan smiled patiently. We find ways to make things work. Hana entered with what appeared to be food, glowing fruit and crystalline structures that smelled like honey. The human requires sustenance. I have scanned his biological composition and selected compatible nutrition. I appreciate that, Taiwan said, accepting the strange meal. I'm curious, why were you 3 the last ones on the planet? You mentioned a renewal cycle. The 3 Celesti exchanged glances before Neri answered. We are not merely guests. Jiayun studies biological systems, Hana maintains security, and I oversee resort operations. We were completing final preparations. So you work here, Taiwan clarified, taking a cautious bite of the crystal food. It dissolved on his tongue like sugar, but tasted like rich beef broth. Delicious, he commented, surprised. Of course we work here, Hana said sharply. What did you think we were? Taiwan hesitated. I thought perhaps you were guests, visitors enjoying the pleasure planet. All 3 aliens stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, they began making musical sounds he recognized as laughter. You thought we were pleasure seekers? Jiayun asked, her color shifting to a rosy hue. What exactly do humans think a pleasure planet entails? Taiwan felt his face grow hot. I may have misunderstood the concept. Neri's expression softened. Elysium is a biological research preserve that also functions as a resort. Guests come to study and experience perfectly balanced ecosystems while enjoying luxury accommodations. Pleasure refers to intellectual and spiritual satisfaction. I see, Taiwan said, relieved. Cultural misunderstanding. My apologies. What did you think happened here? Hannah asked, suddenly suspicious. Nothing worth discussing, Ta-1 replied diplomatically. Later that night, as Ta-1 organized his survival gear, Jia-Yun approached with his damaged translator. Your device is fascinating, but inefficient, she said. It misses 90% of our language's meaning. It's the best Earth has developed so far, Ta-1 defended. Jia-Yun held up a tiny seed-like object. This will help you understand us better. It creates a temporary neural link for language processing. Ta-1 eyed it warily. You want me to swallow that? Is that a problem? Do humans not use biological technology for neural enhancement? No, Ta-1 said firmly. We keep technology external to our bodies, generally speaking. Jia-Yun looked genuinely puzzled. How do you interface with information systems? With our hands, screens, voice commands. The three Celestis stared at him as if he'd claimed humans lived in caves. Extraordinary, Neri whispered. And yet you achieve space travel. Ta-1 felt a strange need to defend humanity. We may develop differently, but humans are remarkably adaptable. We overcome limitations through innovation. Fascinating, Jia-Yun said. I will create an external interface instead. The next morning, Ta-1 woke to find the three Celesti in what appeared to be a heated discussion. His new translator, a patch Jia-Yun had created for his neck, worked much better. Can it simply abandon him? Neri was saying. He is an unknown biological entity. Hannah countered. Potentially dangerous. He is a sentient being in need, Jia-Yun argued. And a scientific marvel. Ta-1 cleared his throat. I don't intend to be a burden. All three turned to him. We were discussing our options, Neri explained. The renewal cycle has begun. Systems are shutting down. The resort will reconfigure itself over the next 3 years. I understand, Ta-1 said. I can build a shelter elsewhere. Unnecessary, Jia-Yun said quickly. We have decided to remain during the renewal. It presents unique research opportunities. You may stay with us. Hannah crossed her arms. If you follow our rules. Of course, Ta-1 agreed. I'm grateful. Later, as they walked through the rapidly changing landscape, plants were already beginning to shift and grow in new patterns. Neri explained their situation more clearly. During renewal, the planet essentially rebuilds itself. It will be beautiful but occasionally dangerous. We three will maintain a safe zone, but resources will be limited. I'm trained in survival, Ta-1 assured her. I can contribute. How? Hannah challenged. You have no biomanipulation abilities. Ta-1 spotted a fallen branch. He picked it up, pulled out his utility knife, and began whittling. Within minutes, he had fashioned a basic but effective spear. Humans have been making tools for thousands of years, he said, testing the balance. We don't need to grow things when we can build them. The three Celesti watched with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Perhaps, Neri said thoughtfully, we have much to learn from each other. Ta-1 looked out at the changing alien landscape, then back at his three reluctant companions. 3 years is a long time, he agreed. But it might also be an opportunity none of our species has ever had before. To understand each other, Jia-Yun asked. Exactly, Ta-1 said with a smile. Now shall I show you how humans build a fire? The first month on Elysium tested everyone's patience. Ta-1 struggled to adapt to the planet's shifting environment, while the Celesti found human habits puzzling and occasionally disturbing. You actually burn plant matter for warmth? Jia-Yun asked one evening, watching Ta-1 tend a small fire outside their growing shelter. It seems so destructive. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most reliable, Ta-1 replied, adding another branch to the flames. No technology to fail, no energy source to deplete. Neri approached, carrying a glowing fruit that had become a staple of their shared meals. Your practical knowledge has been useful, she admitted. Though Hannah still questions your methods. As if summoned by her name, Hannah emerged from the forest edge, her skin shimmering with heightened alertness. The western sector is transforming rapidly. We should avoid it for at least 2 lunar cycles. The renewal process had turned parts of the resort into unrecognizable, sometimes dangerous territory. What had once been carefully maintained gardens now grew wild and unpredictable. Beautiful but hazardous plants bloomed overnight, while harmless-looking flowers could release paralyzing spores. "We need a better way to map the changes," Taiwan suggested. "Something physical that doesn't rely on your biological networks, which seem to be degrading." Jiayun's eyes brightened. "A primitive map. I'd studied ancient cartography as historical curiosity." Together, they began creating a detailed physical map of their surroundings. Taiwan showed the Celesti how to make natural inks from plants, while they taught him to recognize the patterns of the renewal cycle. By the 3rd month, their shelter had evolved into something unique, neither fully human nor fully Celesti in design. The base structure was a living organism grown by Nari, but reinforced with wooden supports crafted by Taiwan. Jiayun had developed a hybrid water filtration system, combining Earth technology with Celesti biochemistry. Even Hannah contributed, creating a warning system using sensitive plants that changed color when dangerous creatures approached. "I would never have imagined combining dead and living materials could be so effective," Nari commented one day as they expanded the main living area. Taiwan smiled. "Humans have always been good at adaptation. It's our greatest strength." "Perhaps not your only strength," Hannah said unexpectedly. She had warmed to Taiwan since he had helped her drive away a pack of predators that threatened their food garden. 6 months into their time together, a massive storm swept across the region. For 3 days, they huddled in their shelter as wind and rain battered the landscape. Taiwan's wooden reinforcements held firm while other biostructures around them collapsed. When the storm finally passed, they emerged to find much of their carefully cultivated garden destroyed. Hannah's face fell as she surveyed the damage. "The renewal cycle won't allow new growth in this area for at least 2 months, she said grimly. "Our food stores won't last that long." Taiwan studied the muddy ground thoughtfully. "On Earth, we've farmed in difficult conditions for thousands of years. I need your help to try something." Under his guidance, they created a series of terraced gardens using fallen trees and stones. Jiayun modified plant seedlings to grow faster and with greater resilience. Nari developed a natural irrigation system that collected rainwater, while Hannah crafted protective barriers against the increasingly curious wildlife. "This is not how Celesti would approach the problem," Jiayun noted as their first new crops began to sprout. "We would simply move to a more hospitable area. Humans tend to dig in and solve problems where they are," Taiwan explained. "We're stubborn that way." Nari brushed her luminescent hair back from her face, a gesture she had unconsciously adopted from Taiwan. "Your stubbornness has kept us fed. Perhaps there's value in it." By the end of their first year together, the 4 had developed a rhythm to their days. Mornings were spent maintaining their expanding home and gardens. Afternoons were devoted to exploration and resource gathering. Evenings were for knowledge sharing. Taiwan taught them Earth history, music, and practical skills. The Celesti taught him about their vast galactic federation, their biological science, and their philosophy of harmonious existence. "Your species fights wars over resources," Hannah asked one night, genuinely confused. "Why not simply grow what you need?" "Not everyone has your biological gifts," Taiwan explained. "Humans had to compete to survive for most of our history. Yet you developed compassion and cooperation despite this competition," Nari observed. "Most fascinating." As the second year began, their shelter had grown into a true home, a unique blend of human ingenuity and Celesti biological mastery. Gardens flourished in carefully designed terraces. A small stream had been diverted to provide constant fresh water. Solar collectors of Taiwan's design captured energy from both suns, while living lights grown by Jiayun illuminated their home at night. Most surprisingly, they had begun to think of themselves as a community rather than 4 stranded individuals. I've been studying the renewal patterns, Jai-yun announced one morning as they shared breakfast. I believe we can predict the transformations now. We could even guide them, to some extent. Guide them? Ta-won asked. Neri nodded excitedly. With your structural designs and our biological knowledge, we could create something entirely new. A habitat that combines the best of both approaches. Hana, typically the most reserved, added, something neither humans nor Celesti have built before. Tai-won looked at the three aliens he now considered friends. Then let's build something remarkable together. As they sketched plans in the dirt, Tai-won realized that what had begun as survival had become something more significant, perhaps even historic. The first true collaboration between humans and Celesti was taking shape on this forgotten pleasure planet. The first sign that the 3-year renewal cycle was ending came when the twin suns aligned perfectly in the lavender sky. Tai-won stood on the roof of their home, watching the phenomenon with mixed emotions. Their settlement had grown into something remarkable, a harmonious blend of human practicality and Celesti biological mastery. The resort systems will reactivate within 7 days, Jai-yun said, joining him on the observation platform they had built together. Communication networks will be the first to come online. Tai-won nodded, his eyes still on the aligned suns. 3 years, he murmured. It hardly seems possible. After the Raxian attack, they had faced and overcome numerous other challenges. Violent storms that tested their construction techniques, new predators that evolved during the renewal cycle, even a brief but frightening illness that Jai-yun and Tai-won had worked together to cure. Each crisis had only strengthened their unusual community. Will you be glad to return to your people? Nari asked, her voice gentle as she emerged from the living stairway that connected their multi-level home. Yes, Tai-won answered honestly, but not without regrets. Hana, who had become his closest companion in many ways, joined them last. Your Earth Alliance will have presumed you dead, she stated matter-of-factly. Your return will create quite a stir. Tai-won smiled at her directness. As will my 3 Celesti companions, I imagine. They had discussed this extensively in recent months. The Celesti had decided, after much deliberation, that Tai-won's return presented a unique opportunity for first contact between their civilizations. 6 days later, the first maintenance drones appeared in the sky. The sleek, biological machines hovered near their settlement, clearly confused by the unauthorized structure in the middle of the resort. They're scanning us, Jai-yun reported, monitoring the simple interface they had built, trying to determine if we're a system malfunction. Tai-won stepped outside, making himself visible to the drones. One immediately descended to hover at eye level, its sensors focusing on him. Lieutenant Commander Tai-won Park, Earth Alliance, he stated clearly, requesting emergency communication with both Celesti authorities and Earth Alliance Command. The drone pulsed with light, then projected a holographic interface. Identity confirmed. Emergency protocols activated. Communication request processing. Less than an hour later, a sleek Celesti vessel broke through the clouds, landing in the clearing near their settlement. The ship was far more advanced than anything Tai-won had seen from his own people. It seemed almost alive, its hull shifting colors as it settled onto the ground. The boarding ramp extended, and 3 tall Celesti officials emerged, their formal attire marking them as high-ranking administrators. They stopped abruptly at the sight of Tai-won standing alongside Nari, Jai-yun, and Hana. Impossible, the leader whispered, the word clearly audible in the quiet clearing. Nari stepped forward. Administrator Su-min, we request formal recognition of our settlement and introduction of our human companion. The administrator named Su-min approached cautiously. 3 years with no contact, and you've been living alongside an unknown alien species, in a structure that violates all renewal protocols. We've done more than survive, Jai-yun said proudly. We've pioneered new techniques combining human engineering with our biochemistry. The officials were clearly struggling to process what they were seeing. Tai-won recognized the familiar signs of cultural shock. the same expressions his companions had worn when he first arrived. "I am Lieutenant Commander Taiwan Park," he said formally. "My diplomatic vessel was attacked, and I crashed here during evacuation. Your people saved my life and shared their knowledge. I hope this can be the beginning of formal relations between our civilizations." Over the next few days, the settlement became the center of intense interest. More Celesti officials arrived, along with scientists eager to study their hybrid creation. A communication link was established with Earth Alliance Command, who reacted with shock and then excitement at proof of Taiwan's survival. "They're sending a diplomatic vessel," Taiwan told his companions after a lengthy video conference. "It should arrive within 2 weeks." Nari touched his arm gently. "And then you return home." The question hung unspoken between them. What would happen to their community? The answer came from an unexpected source. Administrator Sumin, after extensive examination of their settlement and lengthy interviews with all 4 of them, called a formal meeting. "The Celesti High Council has reviewed your case," she announced. "Your settlement has been designated as the first ever cooperative research outpost. You 4 are being officially commissioned as its founding members, should you accept." Taiwan stared in amazement. "You mean?" "This becomes an official diplomatic and scientific station," Jiayun explained, her eyes bright with excitement, "where both humans and Celesti can work together. And our techniques will be studied and potentially implemented throughout Celesti space," Hana added, allowing herself a rare smile. When the Earth Alliance diplomatic vessel arrived 14 days later, Taiwan stood ready with his 3 companions. He wore a clean uniform provided by the Celesti, but modified with elements they had created together, a symbol of his unique position. Captain Min-Ho Lee was the first human to step onto Elysium soil since Taiwan's crash. He stared openly at the 3 Celesti and then at the remarkable structure behind them. "Lieutenant Commander Park," he said formally, "Earth Alliance believe you lost with the diplomatic vessel. Your survival and achievements are extraordinary." Taiwan saluted. "Captain, may I present Nari, Jiayun, and Hana of the Celesti, my companions and co-creators of the first human Celesti cooperative research outpost." "Co-creators," the captain repeated, clearly struggling with the concept. "Yes," Taiwan said firmly. "We've discovered that our species complement each other in remarkable ways. What you see here is just the beginning." As the Earth Alliance delegation toured their settlement, marveling at technologies no human had ever seen before, Taiwan stood with his 3 Celesti companions on the observation platform. "3 years ago, I thought being stranded here was the worst possible outcome," he told them quietly. "Now I realize it may have been the best thing that could have happened, not just for me, but for both our peoples." Nari's galaxy eyes sparkled as she gazed out at the ships from 2 worlds sitting side by side on Elysium soil. Perhaps the universe brings together those who need to find each other.